January 17, 1944, the Central Pacific. High above the Marshall Islands, the air at 20,000 feet is thin, biting, and unnervingly quiet. Below, the vast sapphire expanse of the Pacific is broken only by the white wakes of the Imperial Japanese Navy's defensive screen. In the cockpit of an A6M Zero, a veteran pilot adjusts his goggles, the smell of engine oil and salt air filling his lungs. He scans the horizon, confident in the agile machine that has dominated these skies since Pearl Harbor. But today, the silence is about to be shattered by a sound he has never heard before, the low-pitched, muscular roar of 2,000 horsepower engines diving from the sun. The war in the Pacific had begun with a myth of Japanese aerial invincibility. For 2 years, the Zero was the undisputed king of the dogfight, a lightweight masterpiece of maneuverability that could turn inside any Allied opponent. Japanese pilots, hardened by years of combat over China, viewed their American adversaries with a mix of disdain and professional pity. They expected the Americans to remain tethered to the clumsy tactics and underpowered fighters of 1942. They believed the spirit of the samurai, combined with the lightness of their wings, would forever outmatch the industrial output of the West. But by early 1944, the industrial furnace of the United States had forged a predator designed specifically to kill the myth of the Zero, the Grumman F6F Hellcat. The transition from the Wildcat to the Hellcat was not merely
an upgrade in machinery, it was a shift in the very philosophy of aerial warfare. While the Japanese focused on the elegance of the duel, the Americans focused on the brutal efficiency of mass and power. On this morning over the Marshalls, the Japanese flight leaders looked up to see silver glints in the high-altitude haze. These were not the sluggish bombers they expected. These were the aluminum tank fighters of Task Force 58. The Hellcats did not climb to meet them. They sat at 30,000 feet, loitering in the freezing cold, waiting for the precise moment to convert their massive potential energy into a terrifying high-speed descent. As the Hellcats plummeted, the Japanese pilots felt a primal shift in the environment. The American pilots did not engage in the turning circles the Japanese practiced so religiously. Instead, the Hellcats utilized boom and zoom tactics. One veteran Japanese flyer later recorded that it felt as if the sky itself was falling. The American fighters hit speeds exceeding 400 miles per hour in the dive, their 6.50 caliber machine guns creating a wall of lead that shredded the unarmored Japanese planes. The Zero, built without self-sealing fuel tanks to save weight, became a flying pyre at the first touch of American tracers. The shock was psychological as much as physical. The hunter had become the prey, and the agility they relied upon was useless against an enemy that refused to slow down and play by the old rules. The contrast between expectation and reality was symbolized by a single recurring sound that began to haunt the Japanese radio frequencies, the rhythmic, heavy thud of American firepower. But behind the guns, there was another symbol of the American way of life that baffled and demoralized the starving garrisons and exhausted pilots of the Empire. It was the Hershey's chocolate bar. Captured American pilots often have these tucked into their flight suits, rich, calorie-dense, and mass-produced. To a Japanese pilot surviving on dwindling rations of rice and dried fish, the sight of a half-eaten chocolate bar in a wrecked cockpit was a terrifying omen. It represented an economy so vast, so untouched by the ravages of war, that it could provide its warriors with luxury while they fought. It was the sweetness of democracy, backed by the bitterness of the Hellcats' guns. By the end of the engagement, the sky was filled with black, oily smears, the only remains of the once proud Kokutai. The survivors who limped back to their carriers were changed men. The ideology of the decisive battle began to crumble under the weight of American logistics and altitude. They realized that they weren't just fighting better pilots, they were fighting a civilization that viewed every soldier as an investment to be protected with armor plate and heavy engines. The Hellcat's cockpit was a fortress, the Zero's was a coffin. This realization birthed a new, desperate fear, a realization that the greatest generation was not just a collection of individuals, but a singular, unstoppable machine of freedom. The transformation was total. The Japanese pilots who once sought the glory of the dogfight now scanned the high altitudes with trembling hands. They knew that somewhere in the blinding glare of the sun, the blue ghost was waiting. The Hellcat eventually accounted for over 5,000 confirmed kills, maintaining an astounding 19-to-1 kill ratio. It was the plane that broke the back of the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service, proving that in the modern age, the spirit of the warrior must be matched by the steel of the factory. As the sun sets over the Pacific today, the waves cover the resting places of thousands of young men who learned too late that freedom is not a fragile thing. The legacy of the Hellcat remains a testament to a moment when a nation rose from its slumber to claim the heavens. The abundance represented by that simple chocolate bar and the overwhelming power of the Hellcat's engine were two sides of the same coin. A society that cherished the lives of its people enough to build them the strongest wings in history. The fear felt by those pilots at high altitude was the first cold breeze of a coming storm, a storm that would eventually wash away tyranny with the sheer unyielding weight of American resolve.